It is a great honor and pleasure for us to be with you today at the meeting with the Russian scientists. Your first dialogue with the Russian scholars and scientists within the program Fundamental Knowledge took place in Delhi in 2017 and was called The Nature of Consciousness. It was followed by the second dialogue, Understanding the World, which took place in Dharamsala in 2018. The dialogues were organized by the Save Tibet Foundation and the Moscow Office of Tibet. These historical events inspired the group of Russian scientists to launch a research program to study effects of meditation, and particularly Tukdam, so-called post-mortal meditation, with the methods of modern science. Members of this research team are present here today. They have so many questions to ask and hope to get the guidance from Your Holiness to continue their work. Now, without further delay, I pass the microphone to the head of the research group, member of the Russian Academy of Sciences, founder of the Institute of Human Brain, Professor Svyatoslav Medvedev.
Your Holiness, first of all, I would like to thank you for guiding me to start research of Tukdam and related meditations 2.5 years ago. With your invaluable assistance, we established 2 labs in Tibetan monasteries of Belakupe and Mangut. We are planning to open a 3rd lab in northern India. Besides Russian scientists, we have Tibetan monks working in our lab. These monks studied scientific methods under the guidance of leading Russian scientists and became monk researchers. They helped us to continue our research even during the pandemics, and I am happy that they participate in today's discussion. We have already investigated 104 Buddhist monks who performed meditation recommended by you, Your Holiness. They have a number of important results. Right now, we have completed regular observation of 37 days Tukdam case in Gyuto Monastery. We invited a physician, an expert from a state criminal bureau, whose job is exactly to examine physical bodies at various stages after death. We demonstrated that the state of the body in Tukdam is totally different compared to normal death processes. So we can say that we got first scientific evidence of Tukdam. We were happy to continue our study under your guidance, and my question is, study of Tukdam is very important for Buddhism and science. But what's the value of it for a human being? Thank you.
Tukdam di zawe tanda maas nangchwe tang tsenri nyamshu chiye la da shuji da kechimbuchi chawe yorwas. Ina yang da jibdang zamuli la Tukdam kechi zu kandes chawe yorwas. Chiwa dirish. Jibdang jibdang.
Korsa. Ade. Langde wo mutu di laidun yikyu. Tukdam ji kwa la. Tsenri da tumbe takcha shikzwe. Nangchwe tsenri nila.
Nina kechimbu resi, indi zhuwa mi jili kesen kariya nasi.
Tadi, 다스 가소래. 다 민남주가 타네. 지금 내주 가와이나야. 지금 봐도 심주로 정해지. 지금 뭐는 셰베이나 다 알아 두동 꽂아서 저리. 지금 뭐서 통구요래. 지금 요래. 다디 컨트스 용구요래. 레바 장장 그 타네. 드셔지부터 배지 가고래. 자들이 인도산에 시기다디 에네 가다 지상에 쳐나라. 학월도에다 심 차라기 여 천의 송샤디 배지 상하 라메 관에 숙체요래. 제사가 다 된적이니 변한 거라서 가서 투등 중에도 저 제리 추 배지 차서지 다 될려 양아주 아니 러시 제주 군도 아니 나외는 식이 또고 소숨 체외를 식이 또고 십주 년도는 식이 또고 든 쟤는 어디 두스네 간다 러시아 문구 주요래 자상가 다 디디 당 안주디 심주 쇼와지 러시아 너 유튜브로 쇼스는 저기 데 지금 난시 톱숨 패지 급리야 패지 의심기 난시 톱숨 마샤 공기 하다 에네 단 남주한다 가사 간다다 룽수 락바디도 마 팀야 거도 전제지를 패지 만들어 섬기 동보승부 그도 패질 의미 다들 저기 그 심주시하르샤 아다 두듬심에 가시 류기체 이게서르지 다 뒤이나 아다 나지 소송 제베 그도 말이 사실로쯤 춤멜쯤 멜룬로쯤 룽 남시라쯤 남시 나갈쯤스를 전에 애니 러시아 주군도 가네 외생원도 잘 시기하래. 자상가 토메한다 사출로팀 춤멜로팀 다 드즈 예매도 앞에서 매로아 간다 심주시하르샤 다디 지 가서를 보게 천지기 타네 다 지기 시발 간다 남시 봐도 차르 저대데 아주 삼을로 현세리 투등중에 다 가신 아주 통구요래 자든지 인도 다 어디서 저기 천리부 타네 고심주시아직 다 요래 다 로미 찌려야 다 믹세 저체스케 아유미유 낭지 토성 사지 자리 시외 거두르지 되게 지다 미는 다 내가 참 사사르 에디 시위시위 되게 생각하면도 다 지금 산예의 흉근안에 아니 청어지 시기요래 청어지 전에도 저들이 천디네 디네치 되네 아니 겨워지면 루비아지기 수미카로 있는 바로 요 말이 시 대한감다 즉 성공도 하지야리야 그래서 대용구요래 바로 용구요래 다 어디서 저기 지기 낭배 흉내다 송셔때 제 믹스에 도나 전에서디 양고 가서래 그 심주시야지 차되기도 봐 어떤지 지래 야
So, with regards to your question, by using our human intelligence and human understanding, of course, we need to do more research on Tukdam. And when we do research on Tukdam, of course, we should understand that according to Buddhism, we believe in a state where someone goes through the process of dissolution and not yet dead as such, but people who stay in Tukdam have ceased breathing. And when the dissolution process goes on in a person who is going through the process of dying, in our text it's mentioned that they go through what are known as 3 visions of whitish appearance, and then reddish increase, and then that of the near attainment, blackish near attainment. And during these 3 stages, different conceptions or different states of mind, conceptual minds, are also go through dissolution. And so during the first dissolution of during the stage of the whitish increase, 33 of those conceptions dissolve, and then during the second one, which is the reddish increase, 23 of the conceptions dissolve, and then at the last stage, that of the black attainment, near attainment, 7 different conceptions dissolve. But we need to do further research on this, because as far as I am concerned, I think that people who stay in Tukdam may be staying in Tukdam prior to these 3 stages. Perhaps these 3 stages, the 3 visions, when they go through the dissolution of the grosser elements. And so perhaps the reason why I say this is because it is said that when someone is in Tukdam, their body heat is still there. And so therefore, it may be the case that they are around the stages of when the earth, water, and fire elements are dissolving, still going through the process of dissolution. And so therefore, it may not be during the time of the 3 visions as such, which comes later. And so therefore, there is need for further scientific research on Tukdam. And so regarding the significance of this research on Tukdam for humanity, I'm not very sure how significant it would be, but when the death occurs, because when someone dies, an ordinary person dies, and has gone through the resolution of the 3 processes, the 3 visions of whitish appearance and so forth, that's already a stage where you would call it a clinical death of a person as such. And according to Buddhism, we believe in past and future lives, rebirth. And therefore, there is some significance if you do research on Tukdam, and from that point of view as well.
About nearly 3 weeks, 18 days. So more than 2 weeks, you see, he remained in Tukdam. Then recently, one monk who belongs to the monastery, about now 1 month, over 1 month, he remained in Tukdam. So it is something, a reality. Now explanation, you see, we need also the tantric also text, particularly Gui Samanza, more detailed explanation. And then, since it is also actually we can see, we notice, therefore, from scientific way also, you see, need some explanation. Like that, ordinary people will not take bother Okay. Yes.
Thank you very much, Your Holiness. The next question is from Professor Alexander Kaplan, Head of Laboratory for Neurophysiology and Neurocomputer Interfaces at Moscow State University. Professor Kaplan is researcher and the main teacher in the Monks Researchers Training Program Middle Way Approach in Neuroscience. Professor, please.
Your Holiness, thank you for your wonderful initiative for cooperation of monks and Russian scientists. Actually, we teach each other. And Russian scientists are not only studying the brain during meditation, but also trying to understand the Buddhist teaching itself. My question is, what Buddhist ideas could help Western scientists to understand the workings of the brain?
거사 좋아.
생리버 저기 당제치도 상관없어.
So far, in the past, the science come from West. So, you see, only towards external things, which things we can see, we can test. Now, gradually, among the scientists, our daily life, peace of mind is something very, very important. Now more and more scientists also now showing interest how to develop genuine peace of mind. Peace of mind also is very helpful for our health. Too much anxiety, too much frustration, or too much anger is very bad for our health. So, not talking about next life or Buddhahood, these things, simply how to keep this physical more healthy way. And then obviously, among the, I think the several thousand different species of mammals on this planet. The other, simply, you see, they take concern about their own survival. And most of these animals, you see, mainly, you see, taking care, their almost daily life and their reproduction. Now, scientists now mainly now begin to concern about peace of mind, how to take peace of mind. And for that, the destroyer of peace of mind is anger, fear, so on. So the only, you see, also the antidote, these emotions which disturb our mind from medicine, temporary. But among the emotion, the opposite sort of emotion, such as compassion, loving kindness, you see, direct oppose about anger and anxiety. So therefore, now among the scientists, not talking about next life or these things, but simply how to keep peace of mind. And then obviously, the world, mainly human being, 7 billion human beings. Everyone want peace, yet a lot of problem created by human being. So now the word emotion. The other day I mentioned the emotion. Just sort of say in this scientific field, in English word, is not my sort of word. So simply they use emotion. But according Indian, the knowledge about mind or emotion, at least see there one particular sort of text which one Tibetan scholar in many years ago wrote. It mentioned we call lurik.
Mind and awareness.
Ah.
Mind and awareness text.
Oh. So 딜러더니 가서 군중아 영행아 아니 개화주지 zanyu 니니 휴현주시 전에 어디 디디어 쉬우체무도가.
And so within the Buddhist text called The Study of Mind and Mind and Awareness, we make distinction of the mind into or mental factors into 51 into six different categories, which are called five omnipresent mental factors, 5 object determining mental factors, 11 virtuous mental factors or wholesome mental factors, and 6 primary afflictive mental factors, and 20 secondary afflictive mental factors, and 4 variable mental factors.
So now, in order to keep peace of mind, you should have more knowledge about the whole system of our emotion. Then you see you can tackle about like anger, anxiety about to develop. Then we pay more attention about counterforce. Through that way, we can keep peace of mind. Even you see a difficult situation, like Shantadeva mentioned, you see your enemy, troublemaker for you is best teacher of yourself. So such sort of idea, very, very useful when we come across some problem. And sometimes you see, some people deliberately create some problem. You see, that's the best opportunity to keep patience and altruism like that. So the peace of mind, everything in your own hand, not depend on the circumstances, but no matter what circumstances, you can keep peace of mind. So for that, you need more knowledge about this whole system of our mind and emotion, like that.
Thank you, Your Holiness.
Your Holiness, the next question will be asked by Professor Konstantin Anokhin, member of the Russian Academy of Sciences, director of the Institute for Advanced Brain Studies under Moscow State University. Professor Anokhin is a lecturer in the Monks Research and Training Program Middle Way Approach in Neuroscience. And Professor Anokhin was one of initiators of the dialogue between Buddhist and Russian scientists, Fundamental Knowledge.
Your Holiness, thank you very much for the continuation of these dialogues with the Russian scientists. According to Buddhism, the mind of every newborn child is a continuation of individual mind stream coming from his previous life. My question is, do you think there are any other ways to reveal these traces from previous life besides personal accounts of a child or ability to recognize places and objects from the past life? Thank you.
Now there are, I think, the other community who have no idea about, you see, the rebirth. So they not pay much attention. So they simply, this child, you see, let's say they express some strange like that. But then Indian, as well as, you see, among Tibetan, there are a number of cases, you see, the child, I think 3, 4 years of age, you see, express their past life. So one Tibetan boy who born in Tibet, in Lhasa, you see, he insists, this is not my place. I go to India. Then, you see, when reach here, Dharamsala, usually you see Tibetan who visit India, usually you come here. So the parent with that child came here, and then the child, the boy, insisted, this is not my place. Then eventually reached South India. Then there's one big monastery, Devu Monastery. Correct. Ganden Monastery. Then, you see, he mentioned, this is my place. And then he actually led his own parent to one home, one monk's room. And then he mentioned, now this is my place. And then he expressed in a table, you see, he mentioned, my glass there. And open, yes, there's one glass. So such things happen. And then my own story, you see, I realized some Lama who came for research, Dalai Lama sort of rebirth. So when they came, I realized them and approached and mentioned their name like that. So these are, you see, actually, you see, happened. So many reincarnated Lama, you see, their main sort of basis to recognize these as reincarnation, you see, usually, you see, show different article which belongs to previous Lama. Then, in a previous life, when then show, so they correctly choose, like that. So therefore, there are actually, you see, people who remember about past life. After born, few years, that sort of memory remain quite strong. Then age, or say
grow older.
Ka.
As you grow older.
Or when grown, brain which depend on the each previous sort of memory then become weak. So actually, you see, we can see who remember your past life. So, I think one significance is, you see, some children, when they study, they very easily learn. I think in this respect, myself, you see, I learn very easily why I play. So that shows I have some knowledge, previous life. That's quite clear. So these are the method to recognize the child, you see, who remember past life and like that.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank you very much, Your Holiness. The next question is from Yulia Boitsova, researcher of Laboratory of Neurovisualization at the Institute of Human Brain in St. Petersburg. Yulia Boitsova has been involved in studying meditation in Tibetan monasteries and retreat centers.
Your Holiness, to study how one-pointed meditation changes the brain's activity, we need some physical science to see when in the process of meditation, a practitioner reaches the deepest concentration or gets a direct experience of emptiness. And my question is, are there any objective external signs of deep shamatha meditation, such as slow breathing or heartbeat? Thank you.
I think here we should make distinction, two kinds of meditation. One, single-pointed meditation. Usually we call shine. That simply strengthen the ability of our mind. Usually our mind very much scattered. So the mental energy channelize. And that also, you see, help to sharpening your mind. But that not something a special connection with Buddhism, but non-Buddhist tradition in India, we are same. We call shamatha. Then vipassana, analytical meditation. Now here, you see, there are differences. Now, so single, also the minded, shine, shamatha. When you meditate on shamatha, you see, your mind becomes something quite restful. So heart beating, these automatically reduce. So, ning parja. I think a meditation who simply, you see, practice shamatha, I think his or her physical level much more calm, relaxed. Then analytical meditation, analyze, in a way, fully utilize ability about our mind to investigate what is reality, but with help of a single-pointed mind, Shila Sungji. So I think the people who properly have some experience about analytical meditation, naturally, single-pointed mind also used to come together. So these, usually I think their health much better because the all body element remain as the very kazuda,
balanced.
very relaxed like that. Okay.
Thank
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Your Holiness. The next question is from Venerable Geshe Nawan Norbu from Seraje Monastery, supervisor of the Russian Science Center in Bilakupe. Unfortunately, Geshe-la has some technical problems with his sound, so I will read his question for you. Not all the participants in the meditation research are on same level of spiritual realization. Hence, this factor could impact the overall outcome of the meditation study. Our question is there a specific meditational practice that generates similar results regardless individuals' differences in spiritual realization?
그래서 공기 님심 난게 상마 난게 또고 찍으면 볼때 또고 토면 요왕기 님십진 죽들라 슈긴 중 시tam 시나 고모 또고 토면 꾼라 님십진 중지 직송 요래 I think the general investigation about mind, about state of mind, and single-pointed mind, and even you see analytical meditation, I think generally you see same. Then particularly the analytical meditation, and then the object which you meditate, like then you see more subtle sort of point, such as Tongpanyi, Shunyata. When you analytical meditation, meditate on emptiness, firstly, we always feel my body, my speech, my mind. And then the further question, where is I? Now investigate. Without investigation, simply you feel. So there's enough reason there is I. Otherwise, you see, if you investigate, nothing you can find. So you see, your mind meditate on such deeper, also the deeper level. Now that the umajugbenalia, the shesha, umajugbenalia, Kajirangi Senyi Tenyu, Telakuru, Govujigbichir, Tony Govujigbi, Yuna, Tenjing, Tishing. Kansin Govu did a Namchana, Tini Dajan, Tsurudu, Nanimani, Tijik Dengi, Tanyadana, number Jamijas. Teni goes to Kanshiki, Dadashan, Jawa remember, Tanya Tanya, Chi Jawakanga, even your Sani. That do some down Chibina, Chen Yam to go. But Sashi rang Nalo Leti Hori. So today in the Sane, Kada Mata Majevangane, any 남샤 셔야 마도 그러나 나서야디 나조다 무식 용되지 진지기다 겸쟁도네 나서야지 여러 마도 셰 나서는 데잖아 켜는 예매도 로컨시기 아니 나 딱든 전에 나 때문에 미두 사버치기 로리야 나와도 좀 미두 사버치기 다디 민자 따유 잠도 매버치 로리야 가서르페 네버 토베이나 양고 덴징 아테게 지보고 슈슌로 돼야지 더 세우샤리 자자가 아도 우먼주고 치기디 나디 저르사 겨요리 대달로도 세게 나와 세잖아 랑게라나 네베 주루 라신도 스숨데다 멀리 되네 깨매버 또도 다녀 대표도 좀 고번로 세네 갈레리아 지금 고된 지드버치 톱토야기 내 로ike요리 다 아니 다도 고버도 3대 이미 조금에 벌라 니장 깨버지 대공 대시 송지 상제 리전의 멀리번호로 파버셔 아니 아니 쇼디스 그저더니 쇼양가고 개요고 강배제고 되네 교 강배 누누다네 개요는 그 슈도기 개연의 자수 파를 초동로 우모는 주고를 심기고 주고스 어다 나다 와르스다 디상등이요리 내가 우먼주고 르부시디 되길래들이 대지 상무다 엔드네 제 그게 나승에도 봐 다들 제디 현이 이해하면도 지금 롤레인도 디 무튼도 스콤네 아니 슈고 민자 따요 잠시 나도 롤로 수수부 샤대야디 다 때내면도 사버지 롤이야 샤트야시 용구도 와 어다고 사무 동분이 있어야지 오늘은 덴진이야 태거를 넣어대게지기 아니 녀몽견나 멀리 이거서 달래진 걸로 통주지 다는 네 유도 또전에 내줘 봐야 다는 거버치사 어다 디디 가서 그로 상다는 세월을 차인 것도 봐 어딘지 가 공부부 똑똑하면 끌어 님식이 중재 직송 원래 다 직송사지도 가보면로 가다 생금에 박자기에 숙진시 연구를 봐 아니 천들이네 그 원복 놀려다 되게 더네 개발 연구를 봐 야 소놈 그게 잡된 숙실을 그지에면 다 맨저 쇼지 감도 매번 나서지 옆에 있는 산에 지구야 배시 가고래 배나 미치기네 소소 배나 소수치고 소소라는人이 차샤네 지금 고도 검찰시라나 매번 거도 그 로를 샤야다 즉 검기지 냠내로 해야지다 전에 갈래라 로던 다와 제니 아니 냠뇽을 더 슉슉슉 심백거도 델루고 공군도 단디디 그 슉슉을 더 되기도 봐 저자가 강사 직이네 나도 망셔도 뒤중기 싫어기 딱 몸 검스든지 리사서 좀 하다 쉽쉽게 말이 되네 섬중기 네버터 되버지다 되네 공중기 냠뇽 인도산에 애는 그 맨다 랭구도 와 어딘지 Next question.
Your Holiness, the next question is from Lev Yakovlev, undergraduate student of Professor Alexander Kaplan from Moscow State University. Lev Yakovlev has been involved in studying meditation in the Tibetan monasteries of South India.
Your Holiness, thank you for the opportunity. One of the mental states during tantric meditation that we try to capture with our scientific instrumental methods is so-called clear light condition. During the experiments, the monks have gas sensors caps on. Researchers are present in the room. My question is Is it actually possible to detect this clear light condition in the scientific experiment? And how could you describe this state of clear light for people without any meditational experience?
It is no problem. You see, in order to investigation about the movement of brain, so it is worthwhile put some electric sort of wire like that. Then the mental level become more subtler, then brain movement already stop. So then wire, you see, cannot show any sort of indication. Grosser level of mind stop, then brain activities already stop. Then, as I mentioned earlier, because of the subtle level of consciousness experience, then brain work already cease. So, rāngshīn jēshū tōkwa, tā dē āndā sūnsū nī yōre, rāngshīn jēshū tōkwa ngā lā ngā, tēne shīne nāngshī tōsō shāyā chīk, yā rāngshīn jē, nāngā rāngshīn kā tōkwa sōsū ngā, ānā nāngā jē, chēbē rāngshīn kā tōkwa shibshū ngā, tēne chēbā jē, tēne nyētō kā rāngshīn kā tōkwa tūyō ngā, ānā nyētō jēyā sīngē, 도우스는 송야기 양 송균 지겨리 다 패실 다 드저체디 다 냠뇨로 영해지고 하나도 스타샤베이나 다 패실 러시제주 또봉야는가 되네 이니 나와 체바 나와 녀토 말이 동바 아니 나와 체바 녀토 신어도 도우스만 줘야지 to do level gatsar sees yomar da shiva korang gitene dos taranro deyachi.
Your Holiness, could you please ask to translate consecutively in English? Yeah, I'm sorry.
Okay. And so with regard to the dissolution of the process of what we call the 80 different conceptions and the appearance of the 3 different visions, there are different interpretations or understandings here. Some scholars say that the 80 different conceptions dissolve and then you have the appearance of the whitish, the 3 visions of whitish appearance, reddish increase, and the blackish near attainment. Whereas some other scholars say that the dissolution of the 80 different conceptions happen as you go through these 3 visions of the whitish appearance, where it said that 33 different conceptions dissolve, and then after that the reddish appearance happens, and at that point the 23 different conceptions dissolve, and then finally after that the 7 different conceptions dissolve and you have the experience.
Reddish malama marbe.
And then the 7 different conceptions are called at the stage of the near attainment, blackish near attainment happens, and so these 7 different conceptions dissolve.
One way to to recognize this different level of consciousness when you sleeping. Eventually, if you pay more sort of special attention and eventually get used, then you may get some experience. Ni USA 차리야 냐라 동바 디리 걸리 유구요 디리 니 유에서 거도리야 패시 모션지기 탑시시 요리.
So there is also a possibility or technique to recognize during sleep what is known as, we call this the clear light at the time of sleep. And so if you familiarize yourself to a certain extent, it may be possible for you to recognize the dissolution process of these different states of mind happening at the time of sleep as well.
Just a grosser level of Wese.
So within the clear light mind, there are the grosser level of clear light mind. So those, as you go through the process of sleep, you may be able to recognize you're going through the dissolution process of those grosser level of the clear light.
There are some people who actually experience, you see, when they sleep,
Fall asleep.
then deliberately the dream body, you see, can separate from the body. That one is an authentic sort of story. One Tibetan, his mother, you see, want to keep her body while she may sleep few days. So then his son kept that. Said the mother, I don't know whether the real sort of experienced practitioner or not, I don't know. But sometimes you see, because of previous life, some the effect. Some cases you see, it happened. So the mother, she slept a few days, and during that period, dream body separated from her body. And after she awakened, and she expressed during that period, she visited different places, and she mentioned such things to say happen in these different places. So because her dream body visit different places. So there are, you see, cases during sleep or deep sleep, then the dream body can separate from the body. There's something it happened like that. Yes?
Thank you very much. The next question will be asked by Venerable Lobsang Phuntsok from Seraje Monastery. Venerable Lobsang Phuntsok is a monk researcher who underwent science training in Russia and now is working in the Russian Science Center in Bilakupe.
With great respect to His Holiness, there are cases of ordinary person's body remaining fresh for many days after clinical death. A possible reason for such cases, according to scholars, oral transmission is a deceased person was very attached to his or her belongings. Your Holiness, my question is, how can we differentiate such cases from a real Tukdam, and how we should call this state? Thank you, Your Holiness.
Reda, mi chombe kaduliya, chi susu ngobu tindriya, shivuchi shanja shuk chambuchi yabayina, yan tindrigi tane, chi kasugurida, pumbu namsampuki, kata namshi datine, pechir mafyo bendro. Shiva maa charuchin, Shiva charuchin pe kaduliya, ko ngoboro kanya rongo chigil yapete, Shivuji 현자로 슉 첨부 주여비나 거기 다게 안다 가소리 류진 다게 지 시바드 그봐 도스네 되는 지기 근데 배지 6만로 다 투동의 수요면사디 그 간다 현자 첨부 사차니 투동의 수요들이 예 미스버 말이 뭐부터 차제 앵고 다게도 안에도 가서다 남시도 포모토션 대대함들이 그 용미스버 말이 얘네다 조조 간다 얘네 시바 차라가 팀님도 줘야지 강sam지 규여체 얘는 조다 사이는저 지기 군대내 이 냠내로 걸어 여체 얘는 아주 지 규리시셰변한기 얘네 라미기 규나로라 구송 남지신 송샤다 되게 치워 추구 남지사디 아주 얘네 팀님들이 마도 가서 니리시는 가서 다 시작금 지거로 보다 다디 공부로 걸어 봐 숙셔를 신이 연두 아니 배치가 라몰이야 사술로 좀 주면을 팀 멜롱 롱 남신 난가 난가 있는 동고 타보도 이거 동고서 뭐 동고 시로서 디디 이니도 지 균대네 치워주고 남지기 검자로 야오 유대버지기 애니 치워응어수 옆에 그돌래야 엔다 뭐로 쳐용 그러봐 된제기 타네 투동을 수사디 해지 슈긴 된데 유효소지리 저사이네 그 투동을 수니 류부디 공연 시바디든 가사르디 이네 시바 참모디 아다 손징기 아니 가다 룽 아다 뉴율 여대버지다 아니 뉴메외세 뉴율도 차대잖아 안데 류디 가소를 보게 시베 신데베 소르시 사제디 인도 풍부 점을 보내서 디페신 일이 yeah.
Tsipala, could you please translate in English?
So there may be cases where people who are dying or who are going through as they go through the process of dying, they may be strongly attached to something in this life, and therefore it makes it very difficult for their mind, even if they were declared clinical death, to leave for the consciousness of this person, the consciousness particularly related to the experiences of this life. Maybe attached to that the things in this life, and therefore the consciousness has difficulty leaving this body. And so with regard to whether the person is in a Tukdam or not, this kind of thing can happen where people are strongly attached to something in this life and that they have difficulty leaving the body. And whereas if you're a good practitioner, what you can go through is of course, when you are alive, you do your Dharma practices sincerely, and in general Dharma practice, and particularly tantric practices. And here, with regard to tantric practice, we are talking about taking the death state of death into Dharmakaya. And so, in order to be able to do that and experience it, of course, a practitioner has to, on a daily basis, to exercise in their practice of the Dharma, and particularly tantric practice, to go through the dissolution processes of the earth element dissolving into water, water into fire, fire into the wind element or energy, and that in turn dissolving into the consciousness, and consciousness dissolving into the space element. And then there are the 4 different empty states that the practitioner goes through. And at the end of that stage, the person may be able to stay in Tukdam. And so
In this way, a true practitioner may be able to go through these processes and stay in a genuine kind of state of Tukdam as well. And so this can happen through the familiarization in their life, or to go through these processes of dissolution. And therefore, because of their familiarity with this practice, this may leave an impact on their mind to be able to stay in Tukdam.
그래서 안들이 규득 아다 규득이 다직스 다 토동도 쇼브리 디네거리야 믹스에게 답하게 심주치아로게 그거 중요하면은
사지 그런 송송 이마 좀주 속도 쇼바치 그런 게 뒤더 따지 진실을 단지 볼라되게 고고들 숨게디 뒤따지 진 그런 좀 그진 두담 쇼겐다 마숑이 바로 개발이 같이 생기길라네
자자가 뭐지도 저기 뒤균지 쩌람다 뒤균지 냠랭기 냠용 같은 요미 대수도 인 저와지 요래
So people who may be said to stay in Tukdam, for example, in the case of the recent monk in Gyutu who died, and whom Professor Medvedev earlier mentioned about doing the research on him, and finding that, and then found that you could see this clear difference between a person in Tukdam and other ordinary people. And so these cases of people staying in Tukdam may have to do with their lifestyle as well. And so in their life, if they had done their Dharma practice, their religious practice, sincerely, and that may have effect on their at the time of death.
진짜 다 종교에서 들으시기 샤야래 미치 거율 시우치 차세 시고 시비실려 거율나 주의 무실 계제 대대로들이 계셔야래.
So there are stories of people who, in one case, it is said that someone was very attached to his cup, a porcelain cup. And when the person died, it is said that somehow the person was reborn as some kind of an insect or something in a miraculous way in the cup.
Thank you very much, Your Holiness. The next question is from Nikolai Sirov, undergraduate student of Professor Alexander Kaplan from Moscow State University. Nikolai Sirov has been involved in studying meditation in the Tibetan monasteries of South India.
Thank you, His Holiness. Our world is changing rapidly. The way of life in Tibetan monasteries must be changing as well, since modern-day monks, despite certain isolation, are actively communicating with the external world. Your Holiness, my question is, have these changes affected the process and object of meditation, and were the approach to meditation different in different times? Thank you.
다디 초연에다 봐 야도 친체 지 또그네다 야도 친이 예버디 진득이 지 코스 소송원에 전이 용해서라 디 공ям네 지알로 내가 깨면 누가 좋아 지지스멜레 소르셰베 방고방장 소르셰 슈제 인심이 되는效果 김대케면도 근데 지스멜레 라마 마르볼로스 샤샤나 된저기 배 가서 배 독을 총단에 방고서 슈메 봐 되더냐 삼동다라르샤 지금 삼르단에 가다지 두중 초시 아니 터든 둘르셔니 그나 단세한테 기도 샤샤나 아다 저르시 남다는 시제니 tödön zhulu sheni, kanda ini toma tebache, tene sam, tene yang gom, du sheni. Che, dösa, ngamun ada diri anda, drebunda, diri dansa soli ya, diri ki, kora, pena, gen tongbu pechi ibu yu. Chene o, Kurang simjung nali ya, da simshaji nalo lo shu, eni shilo dine gosha kya yuwa shisu, en Kurang nalo de gomkyo che shuya chigi, ko diri yori, ko yontuguro dine, sa da zozo semgi, kaso uri piki, be semda chobuchi yuwa yina, koro dunzi uli ya, dosi ba, tachikdo be gom temne doya dine, 그 연구로 왔다. 야, 지금 삼로 땅에 삼로 안에 삼다 쇼시 개면은 배 차제제 대비이네. 차철 매버체 차철 자야 드리고 다 영식을 봐. 어제를 지셔. Next.
So, when your living conditions improve, of course, it's not necessarily the case that your meditation should be affected or in a negative way. It all depends on the practitioners themselves, their attitude, their determination, and inner strength, and so forth. For example, in the case of Jetsun Milarepa, he lived like a mendicant. He didn't have any possessions, and he, traveled from place to place and even lived in caves without any, much resources. But he was able to keep up and with his meditation, and whereas other practitioners may not be able to do that kind of, go to that kind of extent of living a poor life. But still, the conditions that they have, the resources and so forth that they have is like today, this should not affect their meditation as such. And because in the case of Jetsun Milarepa's teacher, Marpa Lotsawa, he wasn't living a life of a mendicant. He was living a household life with his family and so forth. And so it all depends on the attitude, the determination, inner strength, and courage of the practitioners themselves. And in the case of the monks who are living in these big monastic institutions, for example, they should be able to follow in the footsteps of Master Tsongkhapa, who went through the triple process of studying the Dharma, the classical text, and then having studied the text, he reflected and contemplated on the meaning thoroughly, and then finally he lived his life in meditation. And so they should emulate Master Tsongkhapa in doing these three processes of going through the process of studying, contemplation, and then finally doing meditation in their life. And so if you are able to sincerely do this with strong determination and inner strength, the monastic community as such, and relatively, when you're in a big monastery, it's noisy, people are going here and there, and you can hear noises and see people and so forth. But then you can still keep up with your meditation and your Dharma practice sincerely. For example, there's a story about a master named Tongpan Rinpoche, who in Tibet before 1959, who lived in Drepung, and he was said to have actually lived in his room in Drepung Monastery, which is a big, huge monastery with thousands of monks. And he was able to do his meditation while living in his small room in the monastery. Whatever may be going on outside his house or room didn't really bother him. He asked people to lock himself in, and then he stayed in meditation. And for days on, he was able to go and do that without any disturbance.
Thank you
And
very
then,
much.
so someone who is determined, strongly determined with inner strength and courage and so forth, can actually, even while living in a busy community, hectic, noisy community and so forth, can do Dharma practice sincerely. Whereas you may have people who are called, doing retreats or hermits living in the mountains, but their mind is not so determined to do Dharma practice. They are, instead of being busy doing their meditation, Dharma practice, they may be busy with something else.
Thank you very much, Your Holiness. And now Professor Alexander Kaplan would like to ask the second question.
Your Holiness, science has been developing to a large extent based on experiments done on animals. What will be your recommendations to scientists who work on animals?
나란주다 직샘다 직 류승분 저어다 된저기 양ኛ라 직 샘전에 딱저셔야 된데 그 용초그리 다 이내 그 처음에 붙여지 그러다 닝지샘다 직 거바야고 거바자시 못 통해 거네 애니 배 참스도 되버터네 샘전에 딱저셔나 뒤 먼저 기면도 다 지금 레벨로다 주저 도스 셰야 전달이야 심전을 그 가수를 세워쳐는 왜 버치니 베터 라지지야서 제외는 된논주리 탈롱리.
So, in order to understand the workings of our mind, the connection between our mind and body, it is possible, of course, to use animals as object of experiment. But when you do this experiment on using animals, when you use animals for experimentation, what is important for you to think of is to have compassion. Not to cause violence. Not to use violence against the animals, but be compassionate and have this broader vision for humanity and all beings, in order to bring benefit to them. And you should think that you are going to learn something through this experiment, so that you are going to be able to do a greater benefit to humanity. And if you are able to do your experiments within that kind of thinking and process, then there is not much contradiction between doing the experiment on animals for the greater purpose. Whereas if you if you are doing these experiments in order to, without much, compassion towards these animals, and you are just using the animals as a game, then that's not going to be good.
Thank you, Your Holiness. Your recommendations is very important for us, of course. Thanks.
Thank you very much. And the next question will be from Professor Konstantin Anokhin.
Your Holiness, my question is also about animals. Buddhism says that not only human beings, but also animals have past and future lives. My question is, do you have suggestions how we can possibly test that animals do reincarnate? Thank you.
教恩起所的之者，日开始国교所去，是吧？但是教恩们前那个日者的唐恩교所查询过的，但现在日者的看到西吧，屯主所的西吧有不的现实吧，西吧的可能年龄的距离西吧用过了吧，春季期间的可旅。屯主旅的没旅上呢，旅查到他呢，开发用过的实际实验，在设立的设备军的，我是差不多几个了吧？但第一的 세리기 통마 샤도 말와 세리기 통마 샤고 주는 아니 세리 당고디 통마디 아니 미투비 줄이 끼야지 년링기 주 미투비 줄이 끼야지 아니 캬랑 거 지르와 리뷰 푸나 사들이 이르자네 시버시 인신절라 거라 년링기 주 리투버지기도 하네 마 연구도 전에 세리기 시버디 통마버네 유여되지 다디 그 년링기 주디 거라 기운디 통마버네 마 유여되지 러다 엔 둘둘에 세리기 시버디 요래다 근데 태지시 메라메라 전에 아니 류부 치중의 류 레반 담에라지 되기 때문에 시베 직 담에라다 하고 있는 옹부 시바 담에라 여대버지기다 차대기열이 이게 남을 시바데 페이지 시라 맨라 샤도가 아유성기 다 공연 시바도 제대 둔주 저지 코즈 가수래 거기서 소야로 거라 공연 시바디디 시부 숙청부실 땡고도가 숙자 제로르지 시부 땡고요 시사 공연 시바디디 숙청부시부지 나 자다가다 공연 시베 유르야디 생물 때문에 연구를 마도 나버 시베 때문에 연구를 마도 나버 시베도 만지베 공연 시베 유르야다 하샤 연구 말와 저들이 이르잖아요 알아서다 시보숨 그 심신 상물로 가다 세리기 윤디 돈에 막 용되버지 다도 균전 상담 치매이나 어다 시보로 통마샤고 주나 아니 겨먹고 싶어 준 거래 아니 든두설에 시바 열에 자상하다지 시베 균 통을 받는 막 여되버지 그 리뷰 주태야지기 아니 리뷰야도 통미도 주야서 그 돈에 그 용되게 열에
So regarding rebirth, of course, for most of us who do not have any memory of the past lives, I mean, the rebirth usually is considered a hidden phenomena, which you should be able to come to conclusion through inferential, reasoning. Whereas someone who remembers their past life, for them, it's an obvious experience, not a hidden phenomena as such. And so when we talk about rebirth, I mean, it has to be explained on the basis of consciousness. And so within the causes of the rebirth, I mean, we should understand that consciousness has its own substantial, continuity. And so that is the primary cause of a later event or a moment of consciousness. And so consciousness as a whole is defined as that which has a clarity and awareness nature. And so clarity and awareness nature. And everybody, all sentient beings have their continuity of mind, which is clear and aware or cognitive nature. And so that is the substantial cause of a later moment of consciousness. Because if you have to assert that consciousness has a beginning as such, if you try to point to a beginning of a consciousness, then there would be logical consequences or absurdities that you would have to face. And so, such as consciousness arising from something which is not compatible to give rise to consciousness as such. And so incompatible causes would give rise to a later moment of consciousness, and that is not possible. And therefore, what we have to understand is that consciousness arises from a compatible cause which can give rise to a later moment of consciousness as its substantial or result. And therefore, substantial cause of consciousness has to be understood. And therefore, when you understand that, then you will be able to say that consciousness has no beginning as such, because of the substantial cause of a consciousness having to be a consciousness in a previous moment as well. And so in this way, a consciousness is without any beginning. And so even in the case of animals, we can say that their consciousness cannot be traced, and the beginning of that cannot be traced. And of course, as animals, and there is difference between animals and human beings. For example, in their sensorial perception, the animals have much more acute senses, you know, to detect or to see different things in at a further distance, and hearing different sounds and so forth. Whereas when human beings do not have that kind of acute sensory perceptions, but with regard to the mental consciousness, perhaps there may not be much difference between the mental consciousness of an animal and mental consciousness of human beings. And of course, animals rely on their acute perception of sensing threats and so forth. And so, with regard to these sensory perceptions, the workings, the sensory perceptions even in human beings and animals are finally, depend or are connected to our mental consciousness, and therefore, understanding the mental consciousness is very important.
자사가 릭베 야다 세리 릭베 참 대야다 통매도 주니 다 도스자와 시거로 봐. 아니 마사에 릭베 진짜 믿어가. 고산지가 사고도 줘야지. 패지지.
So we prove that there are past lives on the understanding that the consciousness, which is particularly the mental consciousness itself, has no beginning as such, and therefore, So here you should understand that the mental consciousness that we are talking about is a subtle mental consciousness. So the subtle mental consciousness has no beginning, and therefore we can talk about coming from past life to this life. And because the mind itself has no end as well, therefore we can talk about the mind going from this life to the next until we become a fully enlightened being, a Buddha. This subtle consciousness continues.
So even when you become a
Buddha, this subtle consciousness still, persists. So this consciousness, this subtle consciousness or awareness, has no beginning or no end.
Thank you, Your Holiness.
Thank you very much, Your Holiness. We are probably running out of time, so we have a little bit more questions, but probably we'll ask the last two questions. The next question is from Venerable Lobsang Phuntsok from Serajé Monastery.
Your Holiness, you consider it's very important for the monks to study not only traditional Buddhist philosophy, but also modern science. By your initiative, scientific disciplines are now taught in our major monasteries. Your Holiness, my question is, what is the best way to combine traditional Buddhist knowledge and scientific knowledge in our work as monk researchers? Thank you, Your Holiness.
Yeah. Tadi 가나도다 자사서 샤샤나 에네 그 참을 그 정기 어려다 참을 그 저주잖아요 다 우모다 우세 생기직는 수원의 시체니 이르잖아요 그 간다 리베람네 그 딱세샤시마도 시승배 실사 계계지 말았다 다 남중 가서 미 자살이야 농장 샤모도 마비 시승배 실사 세 농도 전에 차보마 주스야라 도스 강에 저러 당원에서는 가사 지산들이 단 로기면도 오만주베 직접한데 대니 시신 사무 지그룬데는 몽골일이 교회 내버 도준되는 산자신야 현지도수 취미주 세네 아니 주고랑제 날마 천시 소윤도 내대 이인인데 choje langbo so di digi ene minja da zang ge de ko na ni chamu di ni tool chu yo ma re sin de yin de bang so xin de de ge to ma wo xian ne sa de yin de ga da ni nga zo da ta we da xian zhang xi ge ne da ga da xie sung be xi sin de long le sung be xi lo na ene be cha ba mo zhong sin de la ya di da ga da ga so nga zo 다 kumshili yore la, da kanda ko gu yore, da kanda rigbu kore zayne, rigbu kore doos, eni, jigi, ngongeshi yungu do na, eni, kelin gyuwa yaji. De mena kayi ni pe lulu yabsalo sobo di digi, pe rigbu zhumni, chenuji yinu tanla pagu yore, rima do longzangla tengi yomare, longzumde de koran rangi, gelong dagang kyanam je sikje dare seshindu lebar dala ngayeka lawar chayi kyushir min chene kanda ene chumden de korangi de sungdu kwa cheba chene ene ngay sung sheba di cheba chene ene gyumzen deba yeba di iri ene kelin chi ismato chumden de sungbe chiris chene kuyuba sam gyumzen du chene kyalang ko maris chene da sung sheba di da ludu yabsaro soba di iri da ha lebari ribo koredo chene 진리 이마 이르산에 세력이 다 뭐였는지 심주식이요래. 아니 제가가 그런 알아차셔 나도데 자갈 말해봐도 세력보다 좋아시라게 요 말에 고급 거래 요 말에 다 자갈래니 세력보다 좋아시라게 고급 좋은버리 제니 아니 나랭원의 천리군용도로 구두 쳐서도 마서베 댄스 소리 천리로 고기스니 근데 비규체 다한다 로선이 자산 임의유 한다 천리긴 증강하시다 주제 도시야리 아주 차세 계시샤베 그돌레 천리 대 가서 그렇게 로선을 찍으려 샤샤기야리 저 드리인도 자 간다고 만주 낭배 슝네 우치 송지기 돈에 두수 종의 일이 그 뭐였는지 틈없이 시리잖아요. 생리도 념도로 로트해야 돼. 가수를 레이. 아니 다 생리기 나네 친구보다 대주자마다 나 삼컴을 입고 걸어 안도부터 시작해 셔야 말이. 자디 등산 아주 낭버지기 생리볼 파된 거야. 할람 파热거야. 할람 요 말이. 생리배 추热거야 돼. 저 삼컴을 입고 들고 추热거야지. 쉬우쉬우 차인 것도 봐. 저들이 이르잖아요. 가다 생리보다 아주 념돌이야 도순 줘야 돼. 자신의 직처스러나 또 몽대를 사로 드즈제데 렌자야 약수디 시승부 시스로는 팽겨 말이 가다 생리기 전에 드시자 요시 고념돌 루트나 뛰어오도 가
So, in our monasteries, of course, we do study of logic and epistemology, and in fact, we do talk about the yokes, the necks of the two lions, which are the Pramana and Madhyamaka, and yoked together, or crossing together and each other. And so in our debate, when we do sometimes debate in the monasteries, the person who is challenging you and your answers may use some scriptural quotations. In those instances, what happens is sometimes we take off our hat that we're wearing and almost like accepting the quotations, and whereas what we usually do is use logic and reasoning. And so we do not resort to scriptural authority alone, but mostly we use logic. And so if things go against logic, then you would reject the certain positions of different philosophical schools. And so in this context, Master Chandrakirti in his Madhyamaka Avatara, the entry to the middle way, mentions that masters like Vasubandhu and Dignaga and Dharmapala were not up to the measure of to understand the profound understanding of dependent origination and the suchness of emptiness as explained by Master Nagarjuna. And Master Chandrakirti says that if you ask me, have they actually abandoned the Master Nagarjuna's tradition or system or not, I would say definitely yes, they have. And so what this shows is that in the tradition of Master Nagarjuna, which was followed by Master Chandrakirti, logic and reason plays the greater, more important role in understanding understanding the teaching of the Buddha on emptiness. And so we do not have to resort to scriptural authority alone. And even the Buddha himself has said, O monks and scholars, just as gold is tested by burning, rubbing, and cutting, likewise you should thoroughly examine my teaching and then accept it, not because you have devotion or faith in me. And so accordingly, masters like Nagarjuna and so forth have followed this tradition of using logic and reasoning more than just resorting to scriptural authority. And so this is, which is an amazing or wonderful tradition. And so of course, back in Tibet, we did not have much interaction with scientists as such. But after coming into exile, I have had so many interactions and dialogues with so many modern scientists. And today, as a result of these discussions with scientists, we have included study of science in the monastic curriculum as well. And certain monasteries like Losaling, Drepung Losaling has also set up a laboratory for doing research. And then other monasteries may also have that. And then in the final examination of the Geshe's degree, we also have included with the examination on science as well as part of the curriculum. And so it is important for us to understand that the necessity or the importance of combining modern science, modern subjects like science and Buddhist studies together. When they should not be held as contradictory as such. And so through our interactions with scientists over the last many decades, what we have found is how we can actually contribute from the Buddhist tradition, the ancient Indian tradition, to the scientists. And so in this way, studying science together with our traditional values and traditional subjects is always a good thing.
And on the same yapa, answer 가서 우리 샴들 주야래야. 아니 semkom report attachment. 체리보 그게 샤요 뭐보다. 당 모양감 report quantum physics study 하나 quantum physics 대체 쉽더디 다 우메숑나네 송대베도 섹샤르샤. 사들이 인도 가다 이니 안더디 안더 쉽게베다 송디 야고 쉽시도 류원 지신도 띠무군을 내주디 대신 유모 탐지제 띠무 좀be 좀버죠. 댄진 저번 중하고 통로 띠무 중미죠. 대신 배박군이 땅도 통만 예버 차스네. 신 송구도가 자자가 가다 댄중의 대코란이 세다디베 천리도 tum버 다 쉬우지르샤. 아니 파 드셔 제고서나 천리도 tum버 나수 섬수 자리에나 퀀텀 피지식이 어디 가다 벽에 낭수 다도 주에 여 말했으나 타줘야 돼. 어디 댄중의 리베터네 셔야 다디 타르모롱지기. 열매게 탄일이 몰혼전이 샤트야지 시부지 야오르샤 다 디셰베 거든디 samkhang ripo de yore ani tagiyan de shuyage ani lulu lu waji do timu kula na yu timu tenzin ki nyamu tamje ge zawa cha yong yore oda de timu tenzin ki shen yu sun sun ya de la tenjung ge tekona ni sa de gi de le yong yore shujure shatiri.
And so of course, with regard to the science, the modern science, and especially, particularly that of psychology, and science has not developed, modern science has not developed as much as Buddhist science of understanding emotions, mind, and so forth. And therefore, there's lots of things that we can actually, from the Buddhist tradition, can contribute to the science, modern scientists, in understanding the nature or the workings and the system of mind and emotions. And then with regard to physics as well, particularly quantum physics, where they say that things have no objective existence as such, the Madhyamaka understanding of how everything is interdependent has a deep impact it can have deep impact on understanding the nature of phenomena for the scientists as well. And for, of course, when we explain the nature of interdependent nature of things, we can explain it through reason, not just resorting to quotations as such, but reasoning out, and therefore we can make people understand what Buddhist philosophy, what does it mean when we say things are interdependent. Thoroughly we can explain them to others, and then internally we can apply it in our meditation in order to the purpose of understanding dependent origination is in order to counter our deep-seated grasping at true existence and in objective existence of things. And therefore, from that point of view, we can contribute to the understanding of science as well. And the purpose of meditation on dependent origination is to counter our ignorance, the deep-seated ignorance of which grasps at some kind of independent objective existence in things. And so in this way, both in a way we can say externally we can explain it to others thoroughly through reason, and internally we can apply it to counter this deep distorted view of holding on to some kind of true existence in things.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Your Holiness. And our last question for today will be from Geshe Lodoi Sangpo from Gaden Jangse Monastery. Geshe La served as coordinator and translator for ETSI summer program for 6 years. He is science teacher of Gajan Science Center and supervisor of Unit B. Geshe La, please.
동인인지 손을 주면 지제시 가지된 찬업병 예진적 소환지 주시는데 With deepest respect and reverence to Your Holiness, my question is, what are bodily signs that validate someone in Tukdam state? If there are many, among many of them, which one is the most important and satisfying sign of Tukdam state? Thank you, Your Holiness.
투덤 중에서도 왜? 투덤 그 풍부 때문에 투덤도 수요에 따도 참아 강다 강여담. 지단의 투덤 수지 있다. 개치시 다 균도 안다 투덤 중에기 미디 배 갸슬 포모 가인이 개박해요 말이. 균도지 땡땡 냠내로 숙청보 여댕해지기. 디기디 양다 배시 균즈 조처리. 신 풍부 그게 가소래 뭐그 배신의 두수 예바상 땡기 스포지도 용기요래 사들이 인도산에 뭐뭐 링루식이 지수야지 라마지고 총배 그들이야 미두스 가소래 조조제도 스테브리 엔디 로고티 그 남도를 세줘서 당자시시 파르리스 되게 유수지 수구요 세상가 어다 그 간다 던지스부터 되다 양고 되는 루우기 견로 되게 있다 연구를 그 남주네 그거네 냠네 야고 유대네 다 가다 기주 쳐서 양도 따와 시기된这个 ton에 공부 냠네로 갈아가서 예대봐 애네 상하기 구송 남지기 배 균도 애네 냠네로 야고 예대봐 된这个 제네 그 시베 거도리야 도수나 다고 된데 도정도 쇼리스네 럽트야지 그뒤 균도 그 가서를 저람 컨지 집어다 냠네 컨지 집어도 제니 상단의 마도 그 조조지 여버 쌍게 할래면 되고 어야.
So, generally speaking, here the person who's found, who's said to be in a Tukdam, should be someone who, in his or her life, have done a good practice of Dharma, which means doing the general practices of the three principles of the path, which are renunciation, the thought definitely to be freed from the samsara, and then the altruistic intention to become a Buddha for the benefit of all bodhicitta, and then to have a correct understanding of the nature of things, as well as having done tantric practice on top of these three, the principles, the tantric practices, and particularly going through the practice of transforming the three states into three kayas, of death into dhammakaya, rebirth into the manifestation body, and then the intermediate state into the sambhogakaya, and so forth. And so someone who has been doing these practices sincerely and have become a good practitioner then may be able to stay in a Tukdam better. Otherwise, if you see someone just after having ceased breathing, maybe sitting in a Tukdam-like, state, but then that may not be Tukdam as such, because there are may be cases that the person may be possessed by other spirits, and therefore there you may see the person sitting in Tukdam, but that may be not the case actually. And so there's a story related to this that my late senior tutor Jebje Ling Rinpoche had told me in Tantric College. Ling Rinpoche told me that there was a monk who died, and then after his death he stayed in a Tukdam sort of a state. But then a friend of him saw this and actually was feeling uncomfortable with that person staying in this kind of Tukdam state like thing, and therefore the person kicked him and actually toppled the body that was supposed to be in Tukdam. So these kind of things can happen as well.
Okay.
Your Holiness, on behalf of the group of Russian neuroscientists and the monks researchers from Serage, Serame, Kande Changze, Sharze, Tribung Gomang, Loseling, Tashilumbo, Gyumet, and Gyutu monasteries, allow me to express our deepest gratitude to Your Holiness for your initiative, guidance, advice, and support towards the ongoing research on Tukdam state and related meditation, as well as your support towards the dialogue between Russian scientists and the Buddhist scholars, which we call fundamental knowledge. We have worked very hard for the last 2 years collaborating with major Tibetan monasteries of the Gelug tradition, and we look forward to expanding our project to include other traditions such as Nyingma, Kagyu, Sagya, as well as the Bon tradition. All the monastic institutions, their abbots, and administration express their willingness to support our research project and it was blessed and supported by you, Your Holiness. I would like to take this opportunity to personally thank Your Holiness for entrusting me as your representative to Russia, Mongolia, and CIS countries for the last 6 years. It is an honor and blessing to me to continue to serve in such a capacity. Lastly, I would like to thank the private office of His Holiness the Dalai Lama, Save Tibet Foundation, Russia, Office of Tibet, Russia, for their support. We pray for Your Holiness's good health and long life. Thank you very much.
투지체. Thank you.